All right, more now with Mary Ellen O'Toole, a former FBI special agent for 28 years, a former profiler, and the forensic science director at George Mason University. Ms. O'Toole, I want to start here. 28 years you were on that job as a former special agent for the FBI. How different is the game today?
Well, it really is very different. The focus of the FBI now is clearly on terrorism. But some of the behaviors that we see in cases like this, there's really quite a carryover to other crimes and violence. So while the focus is different, when you look at human behavior and you look at violence, you do see some of the same traits and characteristics and some of the same planning that exists in other kinds of cases.
But then at what point, after you collect the information on those traits and characteristics that you're talking about, and you have information on this guy, Omar Mateen, who in 2013, the FBI became aware of him. They interviewed him for a couple times for comments that he made. In 2014, a year later, he draw their attention again due to ties to a suicide bomber. So you have people saying, you know, if he was known to authorities prior to this massacre, why was it that Omar Mateen on U.S. government's radar, why was he not arrested? I mean, why was he free to commit these heinous atrocities?
Well, based on what I heard by the assistant special agent in charge down there, they didn't have enough information to arrest him. People can say what they feel like saying. People can make threats. We heard that all the time. People would say horrendous things, but it's not against the law. You can't just go out and arrest someone for it.
Understood. Understood. That is what is beautiful about our country, that we are free. We have the right to free speech. But there are red flags. I mean, there's something different from one of us going out and saying whatever we want to say that is not harmful, that is not threatening, but then you have information or statements that are threatening. At what point, though, and again, we want to make sure that we do commend the FBI for the outstanding job. So many, terror attacks that have been thwarted by their valiant efforts. In the meantime, we do have these questions as human beings who are desperate for answers as to why this keeps happening. Do you believe that there are more tools, if you will, being laws or legislation, rules that need to be opened up to give the FBI more access to what they need? What do you think?
Well, let me tell you what we know about these kinds of cases. We know that there are behaviors that occur ahead of time. We know that these behaviors are observable. So when you ask, well, what can be done, law enforcement, including the FBI, has to depend on people around the shooter who can observe the behaviors that he engages in to prepare for this kind of attack. We cannot be in everybody's living room and see what they're doing 2 weeks before the shooting. So we know that there are these behaviors. It's an evolutionary process. And we absolutely have to depend on families and friends to come forward and notify the FBI or the local police department that they're concerned about something, because without that assistance, we are really handicapped.
And what do you do with that information? For instance, Mateen's co-workers apparently notified authorities of some concerning statements that he made.
They did, and the FBI went out and they conducted an investigation, and they actually interviewed him at the time. But
excuse me, Ms. O'Toole, while you're answering this, put that picture back up on the screen for us. I want to let everybody know that this is the first time that we are seeing a picture of Omar Mateen. There it is right there, a U.S. citizen born in New York, born to parents from Afghanistan, and there he is. And let me talk to you now as a profiler, Ms. O'Toole, as we look at this picture. We look at the picture as usual. He looks like, just someone who would be sitting in the cubicle next to you. What stands out? If the FBI needs the assistance of citizens, what are we looking for?
Well, don't we always hear, and this certainly has been my experience with cases like this, that the individual that engages in this kind of behavior looks as normal as you and me. So we can't look for those normal trappings that we wish were there, but we're looking for behavior. So in a case like this is what we call a very mission-oriented shooter. And the reason for the term mission is because they engaged in the planning and carrying out the shooting almost as though it were a military mission, and that took planning. And it's not likely he just picked that one club from the very beginning and didn't consider, other venues to carry out the shooting. There would be evidence which they'll find on his computer and and his phone, and maybe he wrote something down where he actually had to put together a list of plans that he was making so that he could carry out the shooting. And that may even include a dress rehearsal. We've seen that in other cases where the shooter days before will dress in a certain way, take pictures of himself, and actually post that. And then there's practicing with the firearms. So there really is a lot of behavior, and he lived with other people. He lived around other people. And those are the kinds of things that collectively would tell us that this person now has made a commitment to carry out a crime of mass destruction.
As the forensics science director at George Mason University, I'd like to leave you with this question, and that is, what can forensic evidence at the scene tell investigators?
Well, it's sad evidence, because what it will tell us is what the shooter's interaction was with the victim. So they will look at blood patterns, they will look at blood spatter patterns, they will look at trajectory patterns. They'll want to see what kind of movement the shooter had within the club, and where, in fact, where's the pattern? How was he shooting these victims? Was he up close? Was he walking around? That's the kind of evidence that they'll be looking for.
Mary Ellen O'Toole, I thank you for your time and your expertise this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Thank you.